My earliest understanding of apartheid as a child was much more about the magnitude of the resistance to apartheid, the nationwide uprisings. I spent part of my childhood in Windhoek, Namibia. When we returned to South Africa in the late 1980s, South Africa was burning. I was living in the townships at the time. At the height of the riots, there was tension, there was chaos. I was among the first cohort of South African students who had our primary and secondary schooling under apartheid's so-called gutter education system. When I finished high school in 1994, we suddenly had access to quality tertiary education, apprenticeships, job opportunities, and we were actually being encouraged to pursue the kind of careers we never even dared dream about.
The Vatican's telling us 2 people were killed during this incident.
And today I am a very proud beneficiary of that period of time, that investment and access to jobs. It really set us up for success in our careers, both at home in South Africa and abroad. I began my career in radio, covering really local issues in and around my home city of Cape Town. I covered crime, policing, housing shortages, problems with service delivery, local elections, labor union strikes, you name it. And I felt really comfortable covering these stories. I grew up in the townships. I was very familiar with the issues, and I spoke the predominant language. But I think more importantly, I knew how to speak to people, and I understood the context of their stories and of their lives, because it was my context and part of my story. This is E-News Prime Time. A very good evening. We have breaking news for you tonight. As journalists, we often meet people during the worst times of their lives. And the way I was trained in African journalism is that we have this responsibility to use what we have, our microphones, our cameras, our platforms, to tell the stories of those communities that are living on the margins, who are so often ignored. And we could help make their voices heard by those in power and hold the powerful to account.
Joining me from Cape Town's our correspondent, Haydé Fitzpatrick.
If I think about what informs my reporting, I would say it's the variety of experiences that I've had growing up, whether it be the politics of my home country or my personal and professional experiences as a woman of color, as a child survivor of domestic violence, as someone who has had to climb out of poverty, who was raised by a single mother who was unemployed for a long time, as someone who has faced racial and gender discrimination more times than I care to count, but also someone who comes from a place that is almost always portrayed through the lens of its crises and its problems, instead of what its people have overcome and accomplished in spite of what they have had to endure. So when I became the Southern Africa correspondent for European news channel France 24, I was so grateful for that opportunity, because I could help change perceptions about the place that I was from. You're watching Our Voices. Welcome back. Being on Our Voices was an interesting experience because this show allowed us to focus on women. I don't like to think of them as women's issues because, if women hold up half the sky, then every issue is a woman's issue. But this was a really interesting experience for me because I was able to go back and travel to various countries on the continent, in Southern Africa, East Africa, West Africa, and really hear what our audiences, especially the women, wanted to see in our programming. It confirmed to me something that I've always known and believed, that our stories are more powerful when they feature the voices, the actual voices of people directly affected by an issue, legislation, or a situation. So it's important that we remain inclusive. It speaks to that slogan for me, the one I really like, nothing about us without us. my vision for Straight Talk Africa moving forward and what I hope to accomplish, I want to cover the society, the culture, the future, the diversity of Africa, what's now and what's next, and how Africans experience the world around them, how people interact with power, whether it be on the continent or in the diaspora. You know, Africans are living and contributing to economies all over the world. I don't think there's a single global conversation that we can have today that does not involve the continent. And my goal really is to look at the human angle, the human consequence and the human impact of all these issues that we say are pressing, and to look at it through the lens of good reporting, so we can hear these stories firsthand from the people who are in the thick of things and on the front lines.